Have you checked the children?
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the horror show. I'm Cecil, Laird,
Robert Duell.
I mean, Fuego, here!
and we are here to finally round out our coverage for the Hellraiser franchise. This is the last day of Christmas in Hell. If you missed it, 2 days ago on Christmas Day, we actually finally did our Hellraiser tier list ranking of all 10 films. I believe it was 10.
Think
10 or 11? I know it's somewhere in there.
It's,
9,
I believe
10,
it's
11,
10,
something
nonetheless.
like that.
It's
Right
around there. But
yeah, whatever.
the tier list ranking was done on Friday. If you guys missed it, I highly recommend you go back and watch it. Today, we are adding to that tier list the 5 Hellraiser novels that are available. So when we switch over and start the novel tier list ranking, it's going to show our tier list ranking of the movies. So if you do not want that spoiled for you, then click off now. There's a link in the description box. I'll put in the description box for our movie tier list ranking. Go watch that and then come back and watch the novel tier list ranking, because that's what we're about to get into, and I don't want to spoil the movies for you if I can possibly help it. If you don't care and you can watch how we put them there after the fact, and you don't care about seeing where they are, fine, great, wonderful. Maybe you'll be curious, why is that there? You know,
I would still contend like only the most die-hard, like, you know, Clive Barker Hellraiser fans would want to watch this, as opposed to all the movie stuff, since that's primarily
We'll see.
got a
We'll
lot
see.
of their attention. But if you're one of those people, I commend you for your tenacity and interest.
So let's, without further ado, let's get into it, guys. So I'm going to make the switch, guys. It's going to spoil our movie tier list ranking in 3, 2, 1, go.
Oh my god!
And boom, there we are.
However could they have thought that?
So,
inconceivable.
inconceivable for sure. So this is where we're at. That is all the movies on your left, and we are here to handle all 5 of these down on the bottom right. So without further ado, let's get into it, starting with the original thing that started it all, Clive Barker's short novella, The Hellbound Heart.
And how?
This is what was actually adapted into the original Hellraiser movie, so it holds a lot of esteem in the Hellraiser lore. However, it's so back in the day that they actually changed the name of the main guy for the movie. It went from Larry, or it went from something else to Larry, right?
Oh yeah. Well, also too, in the book, they
Christy.
were Christy and him were childhood friends versus father and daughter,
Right.
Things like that. But for the most part, the characters are still the same, except for those couple little details.
Yeah, and the beats are pretty much like identical, and that's
How
because
everything
Barker.
plays out,
and I mean Barker adapted it himself.
With a
You
lot,
know, wrote and directed.
Yeah, and we won't bullshit. There was still a lot of studio interference even with this one, but it was still more faithful for his original work than what some of his later adaptions got.
Right. So I mean, it's the classic story. It's about Julia and
Uncle Frank
Uncle Frank and Larry and his daughter Kirsty, and or not daughter but childhood friend Kirsty in this one. And it's, you know, his name isn't Larry in this either. It's something else. I can't remember, but they changed it to Larry. But nonetheless, the father is the one that is, you know,
the husband in this case.
The husband,
because he's
right.
not a father,
Correct. Thank you. So it's the same story that you saw in the Hellraiser movie, just with some of the details changed for the print version.
A little tweak.
Uncle Frank is dead and missing, and Julia had a tryst with him during the wedding weekend of her and her husband.
Bitch.
And when someone spills some blood in the unoccupied room of this new house on Ludovico Street that they bought, Frank starts coming back and communicates with Julia, letting her know that the more victims she brings, the more close to coming back he is. And eventually he sets his eyes on his still living brother, and of course how all that plays out without spoiling it. I guess if you haven't seen Hellraiser,
Yeah, if you've
or
never
read
watched
book,
the movie,
or read
it's
that,
kinda
because
silly,
it's a pretty
but-
brisk read too. This is a novella technically, if you're going to be fair.
it's like
about
80
it.
pages or something like
Yeah,
that.
it's less than a hundo for sure. So
But no, for especially the from book to movie source material, this was the better of them that they've put out. Most definitely.
well, I would contend this
I
is
would-
an S. I contend this is an S because of the fact that it laid the very important formative groundwork for this entire universe, this entire mythology. And I know there's some people who actually prefer the film. I don't know. It's so similar, despite those tiny little bits of tweaking.
Well, I
that-
think also too it has to play with people and like their now visual representations of the Cenobites, and whatnot.
Right.
because I did watch it before. I
exactly,
read it,
but also
so.
too though
One of the biggest
in-
changes is Pinhead.
Female.
well, that's
Female.
what I was gonna get. Well,
Oh, sorry,
technically,
did I
he,
step on your nuts.
a little
Well,
bit,
I
a little,
mean,
back up, all right.
almost like a non-binary.
But
kind of
well, that's exactly.
androgynous
Yeah,
nurse,
he's basically it was considered like an asexual demon of pleasure.
And they kind of implied that was the case with pretty much all of
That,
them.
yeah, like they all had their specific features, but they all were asexual.
Yeah, well, and I mean, as they explore further in the mythology, like sexual organs are so mangled and like destroyed and stuff that they are all kind of asexual, regardless of what they were before the transformation. And
I think I totally agree with you. If only for the reason that this Hellbound Heart story is the basis for all the greatness that came after. That is the Hellraiser lore.
And that's my argument between it being like a A-, B+.
Agreed.
Agreed.
That's what just elevates it, so to speak.
I
would
totally
say.
agree.
Oh, no, the next one, huh?
The next one. So
another novella.
Okay.
actually.
another novella. The
But it
only
borders on
other.
like a short story, really, if we're going to be fair about it.
It does.
So like so with this one, it's a precursor to our Scarlet Gospels.
Correct.
But also,
But it also is within the continuity of
it
the
is.
Hellbound Heart.
It is. But at the same time, I still feel like this story we could have done away with this story. This
I
did
agree.
not need to be. It was an unnecessary filler that served no actual purpose into the tie-in of Scarlet Gospels.
So here's the thing. This is a telling of Kirsty once again facing Pinhead, but years later. It's almost like a Halloween H2O version
It is.
of the Hellraiser story. It's a short story, and the problem is I listened to it instead of reading it, and it is the worst, the single worst
You and I both did the
audiobook
audiobook.
experience that I've ever had.
I also did the audiobook,
did
and
you?
maybe
It's-
I just
it's-
didn't experience...
Terrible. I mean, it felt like it was all recorded on Skype before the pandemic necessitated everyone record things on
Well,
Skype.
not even that, but whoever edited the
is
audio
awful.
was garbage.
It was
The-
awful.
The cuts and crackles and
I think one of the biggest things for the audiobook you have to keep in mind, which is a little weird, is that it was read by director Tom Holland.
Right.
Yeah.
The director behind
Child's
Fright
Play.
Night and Child's Play and Thinner, the Stephen King Bachman adaptation and stuff. And so he's not like your professional reader
No.
of that sort.
But that's the mistake of the book company.
but even
That's
aside,
not
from
their fault.
Oh, yeah,
but
I'm
even
not-
aside from that, from the narrator standpoint, and you just look at the overall story of it, I still definitely feel like this was an unneeded filler for the Hellraiser world.
I enjoyed it, but it didn't ultimately end with any substantial results.
No, there was no.
It was
there,
just.
there
It
was
was
no
just.
stakes. Nothing actually.
It was
happened.
something that you could have written in between continuity, and that's exactly what happened. Just to give Pinhead and Kirsty another face-to-face outside of the movie layer, because that's the weird thing about this. So
She's been in 3 other movies after the sequel.
correct. It's
Or, excuse me,
technically
after the original. Yeah.
It's technically a sequel to the Hellbound Heart. However, they utilize all the aspects of the movies, whereas the husband's name is Larry,
Yeah.
and Kirsty is his daughter in this version. So it's a sequel to the Hellbound Heart, but it uses aspects of the movie instead of the original continuity of the Hellbound Heart, which is weird.
So now we're talking about that, and I was just kind of
another turn of the
well,
wheel.
no,
No, no.
I'm not saying that, asshole.
right.
He got
All right.
salty at me earlier because I fucking pulled down on the review for Castle Freak or whatever.
Yeah,
no,
yeah, but
so
although
this
it
could,
does try to
this-
please both camps.
yeah, but this
is what
story
this
feels
tries
like
to
it
do.
could maybe
Tries to
fall.
Dr.
It
Sleep
could
it.
maybe
Yes,
fall
George Flanagan did for sure.
sometime after Hellseeker, maybe. Kind of thing.
I guess it's supposed to.
Yeah, this is actually in the Barker continuity of the universe and stuff, which is a little weird. It is so he conceived the story, Barker, that being with Mark Allen Miller, who was a dude who also worked on the comics extensively.
Okay.
And so that was one of the things where he was like his go-to guy for the lore and stuff like that. But it does tie in with like the French prison and stuff with a few of the other things that we'd seen in the mythology. So I found that stuff interesting, but as a whole, I totally agree that it's kind of throwaway and unnecessary. It's almost like that King review I did the other day, where it was like a prelude to The Shining. It was a omitted prologue, and it didn't really add anything to the major story that is Scarlet Gospels that we'll get to here soon.
So I think this is at most a C minus.
Yeah, I'd say C or.
I was honestly going to throw it
I
at
was going to
D.
say C minus D plus. I mean, I could have been convinced either way.
Honestly, I would throw it with Deader and Inferno, personally.
I think
down there at D.
I think
the
because it
presence
ties
of-
so directly
I think
into
the
the
presence
lore.
of
Okay, we're
Christianity,
talking-
I would give it a C.
I think
because
that
of
puts
it
her
to a
presence.
Okay,
I think
see.
I would put it in a D because of the reading, but I can't fault the story for the reading. of it.
True. Okay.
So
And now I'm trying to remember, since it's been so many months since I listened to this and read it, is Harry in this? He's not,
No.
right?
No.
I didn't
No.
think
No.
so. I didn't think,
It's
I didn't
completely
think
separate
Demore was
from
here.
that.
So,
No,
yeah.
technically there's only been 3 stories that Demore... Oh, 4 stories.
We still have those 2 shorts that we never reviewed, remember?
Oh, yeah, him and, oh, fuck, what was her name?
The blind black lady.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember. Anyway, it's some
Yeah.
ill importance here, but
Yeah.
we'll need to get back to that at some particular point.
So next
Future
up,
stuff for you guys.
Yeah.
chronologically, that came out in 2009 is this. It's called Hellbound Hearts.
Yes.
So this is a Hellraiser anthology book. There are 21 stories, none of which by Clive Barker. So it's all different people giving their takes. Clive Barker does a foreword. Doug Bradley does the afterword, as you can see there. But there's one story in particular, Sister Silas or Sister Solis, whatever, that Fuego mentioned is written by the actress that played the original Cenobite, the original female Cenobite
with
in
the
part 1 and
pierced
2.
thing
She's
between
also
her
the one that
cheeks.
plays heavily in the comics that we reviewed recently.
Yeah, she
They just
apparently
call her the
doesn't-
female, really.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
well,
she doesn't really act
she's
anymore
well,
either.
technically
She
she's
writes.
she's the priest. Well, she's technically the priestess in a sense
the
because
Order of the Gash,
she's
yeah.
Pinhead's right hand.
Right.
So
But that actress wrote the story. It was good. There's 21 stories. In my opinion, 11 of them are worth your time, and 6 of them are really good. So, I don't know. It's such a mixed bag that I'm going to have a hard time placing it very high. But what are your guys' thoughts?
personally, this isn't going any higher than the Toll for me.
Wow.
There.
Oh man, I think their
Well-
story's way better. This is a B for me. This is a B for me.
Okay,
Even
well,
though
but this
I
is
mean
the
more
thing,
like
like-
B minus probably.
Fight.
but-
I've had more fun with more anthologies than I did with this one.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree.
Like there was a lot of like,
Even the Masterpieces books were
yeah,
more fun
like a
than
lot of
this.
like there was only a few of these stories that actually like stuck in my head and resonated with me. A lot of them were very just read and forget.
Half of them for me
Yeah.
were worth remembering.
I guess maybe they're so fresh in my mind. I consider a little bit differently. But
Like
but the promise.
I'll
with the
take a
goth kids
knee
in
and
the
I'll
cemetery, I love
settle
that
for
one.
like a B minus C plus kind of thing.
So,
but-
so
I still say B. I mean, even if it
you
is more
say
like a
B,
B
you
minus.
say D.
Oh, you say D? I thought you said
I
on the
said
same
C.
level.
Oh,
as
C?
the toll.
Okay.
Yeah, I
because,
said C.
Okay, so I...
Because
oh,
of the
yeah,
fact
because
that
the
there's
toll,
some
yeah.
because of the fact that there's some very memorable stories in here for me. I feel like those kind of elevate it a
It
little
was-
I
above
think if
the
this
toll.
was done live action, I would probably have given it a B based on the stories that I liked. So for that reason, I feel like I should probably give it a B here as well.
Okay.
Because I like the stories,
Okay.
but I would say that half the stories are a B and half the stories are C.
But also,
you know what I mean?
too,
Like,
you,
it's-
you can't disagree though
And then of
that
course
this
Richard
is
Christian Math is in the
out of
left,
out of
right?
like the anthologies that we could have gotten. This was still a pretty weak anthology.
It's interesting. I would say
I
that
disagree.
of
but-
the 21
Okay.
stories,
No, that's fair.
of the 21 stories, I would say 6 are A, 5 are B, 5 are C, and 5 are D.
Okay.
Like, that's pretty much
Okay.
how I would break it down. You know what I mean? If I had to. So, to that end, 11 of them are A and B, 10 of them are C and D. So I gotta edge out B on this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, even if it is more like a B minus sort of situation, then I mean, I don't know. I had just as much fun with the stories here that I really enjoyed as I did with the stuff in those, masterpieces or whatever, anthology comics. Like, the stories that really resounded and hit well, they were incredibly memorable.
So now let's get to some fun. Okay, we got the last two here. This is the last book in the official Hellraiser canon.
For now.
It's it would be tough to come back from.
Well, but that's the nice thing, though, is how Barker ended this. Like, and it might necessarily, obviously, it's not going to start back up with Pinhead. It would have to be some other creatures that we came across in the underworld and whatnot, or for that final ending of Lucifer, what happens with him?
So yes, this is the Scarlet Gospels. This is, I believe, for all intents and purposes, the final Hellraiser story as we know it. So but what it does is it combines the lore of two different Clive Barker universes. The Lord of Illusions universe, utilizing Harry D'Amour, and the Hellraiser universe, utilizing Pinhead and all those such things. So Harry D'Amour and his magician friends are drawn into this situation where they keep hearing rumblings about what's going on, and Pinhead is no longer happy with his station as just a Cenobite. He is trying to ascend within the ranks of the underworld, and I mean, realistically, this book boils down to Pinhead versus Lucifer on a grand battle scale.
Well, it's cool. It's because
my overall thoughts are I love this book. I had so much fun.
Yeah, I could only make it into a goddamn movie.
I know.
It's
too
so
expensive.
And honestly, I'm glad that we ended up doing this review because I was able to go back and reread this book because I'd already read this prior to doing all of this, and I love the character of Harry D'Amour. I've gone through the Great and Secret Show. What was the other one?
Is it Everville?
Everville. Yeah, Everville, and then obviously the short for The Last Illusion, which is the short story that the
Lord of Illusions.
The Lord of Illusions.
And then he also pops
of.
in that one short story that he put out recently that's only on like a website or in a small collection or whatever. I think I sent you a PDF.
Oh yeah, it was the one we were just talking about and everything with his little the psychic lady and everything, who we actually meet in this story and whatnot. It's basically just the prequel and how they met and came about. But no, I thoroughly enjoyed everything about this book, especially with just the extra little characters that we meet between Cass. Especially, I like the character of Cass. He was fun.
Is that the big tattoo gay guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one who he's the one who basically does all his symbols and signets and everything.
Yeah.
I say S, man. I say S for this because
thank you.
I mean, this is for me the equivalent of like in the Dark Tower where
the
where Father Callahan from Salem's Lot met Roland, or this is like the Avengers of the Clive Barker storytelling.
It really is.
And so in that,
and it delivers in that big final.
Oh yeah,
really
especially when we get to Hell.
The scale of the storytelling, and also like the divisions.
The 100-story centipede.
Yeah, and also
cool.
the
that's
divisions
actually
and the
that was
disagreement within Hell.
I think that was Butterfield, I believe. I think I want to say Butterfield turned into that centipede thing or whatever. I could be wrong.
The giant centipede and
you're talking about you're talking about the
I'm talking about the giant
the
centipede,
serpent thing
from
the
one
water.
where they're going
okay.
That was a centipede though. Yeah.
Okay.
They even had a picture of it, and it segments all the way up to the sky.
Oh, okay. I'm drawing a blank on that. I was thinking
the
about
giant
going back on
dope.
from Butterfield.
So there's giant creature satisfaction. There is awesome Lucifer satisfaction when you're like, oh wait, Lucifer's already gone in this continuity. Yeah, the original angel factions, the Cenobite army. Like there's so much cool stuff, and then
supernatural
and then Harry D'Amour and his group of harrowers essentially that are meant to witness it all, especially Harry to be the witness.
And that's one of my issues. Like, and I'm going to double back onto like what the toll was supposed to be. So Kirsty was technically a witness for Pinhead in this, basically for like what he's doing in this story, but we didn't get that delivery even in the toll. We got more of what the actual witness is supposed to be with Harry D'Amour.
Right.
Technically, it was supposed the way even the toll was written. It was technically you're supposed to. Kirsty was supposed to be in here. You would have thought if they're supposed to both be a witness.
I also enjoy the meta aspect of addressing the name of Pinhead, the moniker, and like the disliking of it.
Yeah.
And
Well,
stuff.
because
I
calling
thought that
him
was
Pinhead
really
is
funny.
basically it's a derogatory word. He fucking hates it.
Yeah.
Like,
And they call that out.
it's an
Barker,
insult. Yeah.
and that was Barker almost speaking through the
Pinfuck.
text about
That's what
the
he
fact
calls
that he's
him,
like,
yeah.
hey, it took on a life of its own, and there's nothing I can do about it, but I'm at least going to address it here. This is an S-Man. This took
I agree.
so much lore and expanded upon it exponentially.
But
really
also
did.
too, like the rich detail on the scenery, especially when we get into hell.
Yeah.
Like there was no skimping on that.
It's
detail.
Christmas time in hell.
So the final book we're talking about is one that is a complete unexpected surprise for me.
Yeah.
Very enjoyable.
So this is called Sherlock Holmes and the Servants of Hell. It's done by Paul Kane, who, in our review of it, which is up on the channel as of a few days ago, Fuego pointed out that Paul Kane is essentially Clive Barker's Robin Firth to Stephen King, where he's the historian, the Hellraiser historian, essentially, and he's the one that wrote this. And this is basically, what if Hellraiser happened back in the era of Sherlock Holmes, and Sherlock Holmes and Watson investigated the box and the events of what was going on, the disappearances of people, and it heavily folds in the Sherlock Holmes continuity
Big
of
time. You got
all of the books.
Moriarty, his
From
appearance
before
in
death to the
Lies,
after his death,
yeah.
exactly, all that stuff it folds in. And since it is pre-Pinhead, it's not really Pinhead, but they do involve the Spencer name in the story, but it is other Cenobites that are equally entertainingly evil. I will say that I love the hell out of this book, and I will say that it's going to be hard to drag it any lower than an A for me. But what are your guys' thoughts?
I'm pretty much exactly right there with you, and especially it goes back to the richness of the lore on both ends. And I'll reiterate this, and I know I remember saying it in our review of it, with the whole Sherlock fans versus the Hellraiser fans, kind of that acceptance of Hellraiser fans would be definitely more acceptable of the Sherlock aspect versus certain Sherlock fans being more accepting of the Hellraiser.
Agreed.
But with that being said, everything was done very tastefully well, and like because I haven't reading this first before Cecil, so I'm trying to tell him stuff without spoiling too much and whatnot.
Tough,
and
man. You tried the same with me. You were like, "How far have you read?" And I was
yeah,
like, well,
like, and there's especially like I'm gonna say it right now. Like we have a little little sweet tidbit of a hound and everything.
Hound
that
of the
comes,
Baskerville,
yeah,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
like
The
that.
only Sherlock Holmes book I've actually read.
and probably the only one that's really a full-on horror aside. And I mean, there's stuff with presumed vampires, which they mention in this book at one particular point.
But no, the research and everything on both ends was done so well, and everything felt. It felt like it was from the exact same universe. Nothing was cherry picked or anything like that. I really, really enjoyed this book.
Well, I will kind of go mid-range because I love this book, but I feel like because of those potential warring factions, that's what keeps this from being an S for me. It has to be an A because of the fact that I do feel like some Holmes fans and in turn some Hellraiser fans may be off-put by this mashup.
Yeah.
I thought it was brilliant. I enjoyed it immensely. And I love this amalgamation of weirdness and, taking Holmes into even darker territory. And especially what happens in the third act with taking up a specific mantle. That was so dope. Although it did mirror some stuff with D'Amour in the comics.
Well, I know,
we both know.
We talked about that and everything. Basically, like, that's how, like, what D'Amour turned out to be for in the comics is what...
Kind of what happens with Sherlock.
I would picture with Sherlock.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a very solid A. It could creep up into S, but I just think because of the fact that some might not like this mashup, that's the only thing that keeps it from being on the same level as Hellbound and Scarlet Gospels. But this is a great book, and I feel like you're even on the fence about it. And if you're curious, definitely check it out. It's a quick read, 200-something pages. So yeah, it's an A for me though, unless you guys disagree.
No, I would agree definitely with an A. I couldn't. As much as I enjoyed it, I couldn't put it at an S just because it's not personally as nostalgically rich for me as what like the Scarlet Gospels and being like D'Amour and all of them is for me.
Yeah, and it's often tough to say.
Obviously, even the Hellbound Heart, the original story.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's tough to rank an Elseworlds ahead of like the best storytelling in the main continuity.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So.
So yeah, not necessarily an S, but very high up there, and definitely worth your time. So that's gonna do it, you guys.
We
That
made
is
it!
all of
Oh
our
my
Hellraiser
God.
coverage. That is Christmas in Hell, 3 weeks of Hellraiser coverage. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you missed any part of it, there's an entire Hellraiser coverage what is it, playlist.
I'm about to say, we might as well have a
there you
playlist for
We
Christmas
do.
and
We
Hell.
have an
Holy
entire
cow.
Hellraiser playlist. All of that is on there, as well as my review of the Hellraiser versus Nightbreed comic series.
And you also read some of the Hellbound Heart, remember?
Oh, I did.
Startling
Yeah, that's true.
story
We did
time.
Startling Story Time. I did like 2 or 3 episodes where I was reading the Hellbound Heart. Don't know if I'll ever get back to that. Maybe
Voice
eventually.
effects and all that, man. It's pretty
Indeed.
dope.
And as of today, as we record this, I actually just won an auction for the original early 90s Hellraiser comics.
So we're not quite done yet.
So we're not quite done yet, but we're
So
taking a
much
break
more
from it.
sights to show you.
We'll get back
Exactly.
and we'll handle all the 90s Hellraiser comics at a later date, but that is coming because, quite frankly, that's the last of Hellraiser stuff out there for us to consume. So we'll be able to
We
say
went this far, why not
we've
eat the rest of
consumed
the cake?
everything
Fuck it.
Hellraiser at that point.
we need to recalibrate this Lamont configuration.
Oh, shit.
Lament.
Lament.
Lamont.
Ah, yeah, sorry. That's after you've reviewed so much of this damn stuff that it's like the Kelly Bundy situation.
Oh,
Indeed,
man.
indeed. That's the
Transpire.
black version, the Lamont configuration.
Yes.
So anyway, guys,
Just
thanks
so
very
much
much for
ass.
watching.
That's awesome, actually.
Thanks very much
Almost
for
double.
sticking with us. Let us know what your thoughts are on these books. If you haven't read them, definitely give a try to Hellbound Heart, Scarlet Gospels, and Sherlock Holmes. If you're going to read any of them, those are definitely worth your time. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to our patrons for supporting the channel.
Love you guys.
Until next time, I've been Cecil Laird,
Robert Duell.
Gracias, Jaime, Fuego.
and we've had such sights to show you. Remember, guys,
Stay scared.